G'day guys, welcome back to another video on the channel, and today I have a bit of an unexpected video, and a video that I've been doing for quite a while. It is basically the rise of Collingwood of the last, well, I guess one in a bit more than a half of a year now, ever since obviously what happened in 2021. Obviously we all know what happened. The downfall of Collingwood happened after finishing 8th in the 2020 season. The season beforehand we only finished 17th. In the 2021 season, and finished 17th on the ladder with 6 wins, 16 losses at a percentage of 85.6, and we lost our final 3 games of the season. Obviously Nathan Buckley got sacked in that season about the halfway point. Eddie Maguire got sacked as well from being president of the footy club. And yeah, lots of other things occurred, and then at the end of the season we decided to sign Craig McRae, hoping that we'd find the right person, and wow, we have never looked back since. We have been unbelievable. Obviously we all know what happened last year. We won a good 12 or so games by under 12 goals. Obviously we started off the season a bit shaky. You know, we obviously weren't great in our first, I'd say, 5 games. We were good against St Kilda round 1, had a solid first performance, and you know, this was a side that wasn't amazing on paper. Got a few young kids in there like Oliver Henry, Jack Ginnivan, Beau McCreary, players that moving into their second season, you know, people were, you know, questioning why they were playing round 1. We obviously had a few new players. Lipinski came in for his first game. We also had a very very interesting list. Obviously back then we had Grundy. We were playing Jack Madgen and Tyler Brown and players that have been delisted now. So, you know, we've come a long way in, you know, a couple of years. Obviously Nick Dacos made his debut. A very memorable debut, that's for sure. You know, we got a good win round 2 against Adelaide, and you know, then we started losing a few games that maybe we should have won. We got a big Anzac Day win. Jack Ginnivan had a breakout game, his best of his young career so far. We had a fairly good little patch, and then a big hiccup against the Bulldogs, and people were questioning, you know, are we just going to be a mediocre side? But then that's when we went on the run. Starting off with the Fremantle win, and we won games by under 2 goals ever since. Obviously we beat Fremantle by quite a bit, but then we beat Carlton by 4 points in one of the games of the season. We played pretty ordinary against Hawthorn, but managed to get the job done. We beat Melbourne. Can't quite remember every single game that we did win. I think it was Adelaide in there by a few points, Gold Coast, North Melbourne, I think Port Adelaide, and may have been someone else. And then obviously we beat Essendon after the siren. Very memorable game. And then round 22 we had the big task versus Sydney. And over there as well, it was always going to be a big game, you know, probably one of the biggest we'd had in a little while, and we didn't really perform that well, which was a little bit disappointing. And then we all know what happened round 23, obviously ending the Blues season by winning by a point, and then we got pretty unlucky in the finals, in my opinion. Lost the qualifying final very sadly. The semi-final side that played was pretty solid, and you know, we played a fairly good brand then. We were solid again against Sydney, but obviously went down by a point in the prelim. So, and you know, this is all built up, our game plan and stuff. Craig McRae has built us up with not luck. People think it was luck last season. It wasn't luck. It was crazy momentum and the willing to believe to win. Our will to win last season was absolutely superb, and it's obviously continued this season. But last season, the reason why we came top 4 after finishing bottom 2 the previous year was because of our will to win. You know, we got players that never give up. John Noble, Isaac Quainer, Braden Maynard, Darcy Moore, I've just listed our defence. You got many more. You got Crisp, Josh Dacos, Nick Dacos, Pendlebury, Cy Bottom. Back then we had Grundy, even though he wasn't really playing that much. Darcy Cameron was pretty good. Mason Cox as well. Jamie Elliott, Jack Ginnivan, Beau McCreary. The list goes on, really. We could be here all day, really. It's just fantastic. Craig McRae playing with a decent side, I guess. But the side is really, really talented. All of our defenders have speed. They have interceptability. Then you got the midfielders, including Nick, who's obviously a midfielder now, but back then he wasn't. And we'd train them up to get our handball receives going. That's a game plan that we clearly had, been developing last season. And it really definitely started to shine about the midway point of the season. And, you got the usual creators that would normally get the chains going. Braden Maynard, Jack Crisp, Nick Dacos. There's so many others, Scott Pendlebury. Just fantastic. But I guess lots of people think, it's just luck how we're doing it. And our list is really, really good. But one of the big reasons why we've gone from 17th to flag contenders in 2 years is because of Craig McRae. He's such an underrated coach. I think he won Coach of the Year last year, or if not, it was Chris Scott. But yeah, it was just fantastic to watch. And we went on a crazy run, a crazy streak last season, in his first season of coaching as well. He'd never coached an AFL team. Obviously, he coached Richmond's VFL team back in the period where they went on for a little dynasty. He won with the VFL club in 2019 as well. He actually won the grand final in the VFL. So, they've definitely... he's definitely already showed signs. And in a way, our game plan is very similar to Richmond's of the dynasty eras. So... maybe it's just the game plan that Craig McRae has. He says it's the new up and coming game plan of the AFL. But it's still very, very, very difficult to execute without the right list. You've got to have your usual ball winners, and it's not so more much about the forward line. It's more about your midfielders, your defenders. You've got to have great runners, great half-backers that are willing to get the ball up where it needs to be. A lot goes through it. And Craig McRae has just changed the football club. And, he's playing positions where they want to play. So immediately when Jack Crisp plays midfield, play Pendlebury off the halfback or even in the midfield as well. Immediately just put De Goey in the midfield, get Lipinski in for some midfield time. Obviously, Taylor Adams doesn't play midfield now, but back then he was getting some good quality midfield time. And, just giving some younger kids a go as well. Ash Johnson was a great player that came out of nowhere, really. Made his debut against Adelaide last season. Tom Wilson was getting goes in the side, albeit most of them were in the losses. But, giving him a go. Giving Nathan Kruger a go as well, being quite a raw young kid. It was good to see. And even other guys like Trey Ruskow, Reef McInnes, and I guess back then Nathan Murphy. But now he's become a fantastic, phenomenal, very important player to our, what we've got going at the moment. But yeah, it's just been absolutely superb. And this season, it's been just as good. Obviously, we fell short last year in a prelim. Craig McRae would have been pretty disappointing, but he also would have been absolutely thrilled with the way we went about it. And, this year we're sitting 14 and 2 on top of the ladder, equal with Port. And, we've got a bit of a grand final preview perhaps coming up in the next couple of weeks with Port Adelaide and Collingwood. Obviously being the two best teams at the moment in terms of form-wise, and they're the clear favourites, you'd think, for the premiership now. Amazingly, we're sitting first. Just lost the 2 games to Brisbane and Melbourne. Both games where we weren't great, that's for sure. We haven't been great in a few other games as well. We didn't have an amazing game against North Melbourne a few rounds ago now. It was actually quite some time ago now, actually thinking about it. We weren't, fantastic in second halves and first halves of games. Like, for example, we were really good in the first half against Adelaide a few weeks ago, and not so much in the second half. Say the same thing against Gold Coast. And then against the Bulldogs, we only had one really good quarter, really, when you think about it, and a few other good patches. But it's just been an amazing season so far. The momentum that Craig McRae built going in from last season to this season has been massive. Obviously, at the start of the season, we were predicted to obviously make finals and, probably be a top 4 side. At the start of the season, there was a few other teams that were probably expected to be above us, but at the moment, we're probably still, with Port Adelaide, the flag favourites. It's just been absolutely superb. And recently, Nick Dacos is getting some good midfield time as well. And Craig McRae actually has been saying in the last couple of weeks in the little post-match interviews against Gold Coast and Bulldogs that he's got a new winter-type July game plan that he's going to try and come up with. And he's testing it out. I haven't really noticed too much of a difference so far. So whether he's actually tried it, I don't know. But he's certainly got a plan up his sleeve. And he could pull it off, in the next coming weeks. Certainly would like to see something like it against Port in a couple of weeks. I don't think we really need to experiment too much this week against Freo. But, he could be saving it for later in the season as well, perhaps, against Geelong. We've got a big game then. Carlton in a few weeks. Brisbane, I believe, is in round 23. And obviously you've got Essendon, which will be a huge game in round 24. So, he's experimenting as well, Craig McRae. He knows that we can execute it now. He's smart enough to know that we're good enough to probably make the grand final. But he knows that there's another team in Port Adelaide that have, got crazy momentum as well. Similar to how we went last year. Now, obviously, we bowed out in a prelim. Whether Port will do that, we don't know. If they make the granny, then it'll obviously be a pretty tricky task for us. But this new game plan could help us out because we might need to change it up. Because our game plan, pretty much at 3/4 time, we're down this season, we're down last season. Craig McRae just says, well, I guess he wouldn't say it last season, but he would have said, I guess play for the win. You're playing for, it's not a 4-point game, it's an 8-point game. And, this season obviously would have just said go back to basics. And our basics is, win the footy in the middle. Link up off half back with, your usuals, your Quainers, your Crisps, your Nobles, your Nick Dacoses. I guess when you got it in the forward line, capitalise. Some of the times last season and even this season, we haven't capitalised up forward, but we have been in recent weeks, which is great to see. And I guess the other great thing that we have, and we could even see happen next season, get even more, is depth. And forward depth is something that we've actually been starting to build up. And you can kind of see why. We want a good forward line. Just in case they get injured, we want decent forwards coming in to play. So DeGoey can play forward. Lipinski can play forward. Adams can play forward. I've seen Tom Mitchell do well up forward, so I'm just going to assume that he can play forward. I think he can. And then we've got the usual forwards. Jamie Elliott, McStay, Myercheck, Bobby Hill, Jack Ginnivan, Bo McCreary, Billy Frampton's a swingman. Mason Cox can go forward when we don't need him in the ruck. Same with Darcy Cameron, therefore. Will Hoskin-Elliott can play wing and forward. We got young Harvey Harrison, who's been tried out this season, which is great to see. Ash Johnson, Josh Carmichael, Reef McInnes. The list goes on. Most of our list is forwards. And then our defence, our strong defence. We're the number one defensive side in the comp, I believe, now, ahead of Melbourne and St Kilda. Third most for intercepts, which is just fantastic. And that's built up by, your fast, strong type one-on-one superstars like Isaac Quainer, Braden Maynard, Darcy Moore, Nathan Murphy. We've obviously got speedsters back there too when Nick Dacos goes back there, and John Noble. And Jack Crisp can play defence, mid forward. He's a really versatile player who can play anywhere, really. Oleg Markov's been a great recruit this season. That's definitely shown that he can play in defence as well. And we obviously got untried key back Charlie Dean, who's obviously had his injury problems, which is unfortunate because, we were thinking about playing him round 1 last season, unbelievably, before he got injured. And he's always been injured since, so we've never actually said, let's play him. And I actually rate him, so you never know. And Billy Frampton as well, he's a swingman, so it's just a great side. A bit biased in a way, and we got midfield depth as well because once Pendlebury, Adams, and Sidebottom, they're getting a bit old now. We've still got midfielders that are in their prime at the moment, and Mitchell, Crisp, DeGoey, Lipinski will go into the midfield. You'd assume once Adams and Pendlebury have retired. You feel, it's just a great list, really. Also forgot to mention Jeremy Howe. I can't believe I did that. Probably because he's been out for so long. But he's another one. He's similar to Nathan Murphy. Just a great intercept player. And at the start of the season, most people would be saying, apart from your DeGoeys, your Pendleburys, your Grundys, where's Collingwood's list at? Back then, Josh Dacos wasn't recognised as a high quality player. Same with John Noble. I guess Taylor Adams wasn't, expected to be older now and, not expected to do much. But, they've all been good. Again, with Pendlebury as well, Sidebottom. And I guess others were probably saying, is Darcy Moore at risk of being traded? Obviously signed on and now is our captain. But people were definitely saying that, Collingwood's list is interesting, and it certainly is. But it's just become a phenomenal list, really. Obviously, everyone expected Nick Dacos to be a high-quality player, and he certainly has lived up to that expectation. Jack Ginnivan and Beau McCreary, coming into their second years last year, weren't expected to do much. Obviously, we're expected to do higher things in this season and haven't quite done that. Beau's been pretty good, and he's played, I think, every game bar one. I think Ginnivan's missed quite a few. Yeah, I think he's played maybe 5 or 6. So, he hasn't quite cracked in. Bit hard too. Also, at the end of last season, obviously we ended up recruiting some pretty great players in the end. Obviously, Oleg Markov we got through the delisted free agency, the supplemental selection draft. He's turned out to be a fantastic player so far and showed some great signs so far this season. Billy Frampton's gotten games, which is good, as, a ruck and key defender and key forward, massive swingman. He's a fairly good player, so it's always nice to have him in the team. Obviously, Dan McStay, we needed another key forward to support Myercheck, and we've gotten him. Unfortunately, has been injured for majority of the season, which is alright. It's built up the development of Ash Johnson, and he looks like he's going to be a good talent as well. So, you never know. Perhaps it was a good thing that he got injured. Obviously not, but anyways, Tom Mitchell was obviously a player that we had, targeted for quite some time, and we definitely wanted him. We were going after Fiorini, I think, at one point as a bit of a wing to midfield option. Obviously wanted out of the Suns, wasn't really getting a game there, wasn't really too happy with, their current status and the way he was going, and I think he just wanted a refresh start. Obviously didn't happen. In the end, we went after Mitchell, and we obviously needed a big on-baller to just win the footy. Just feed the footy to Nick Dacos, the Jack Crisps, the Jordan Agoes, the Pendleburys, and Tom Mitchell has definitely become that player, and he's definitely lived up to the hype. And was an absolute bargain as well for pick 42 and 51. Absolutely superb. Obviously, we did lose Brodie Grundy in the trade period last season, and he's turned out to be fairly good for Melbourne. Not great, but fairly good. And obviously Oliver Henry, who wasn't really getting a game with our strong forward line mix at the moment, and probably wouldn't have gotten a game anyways this season. So yeah, he's gone over to Geelong to play with his brother. And I forgot to mention Bobby Hill. He's had a really impressive first season. One that I definitely wasn't expecting. I wasn't really expecting him to be in the best 22 really to start the season. Then obviously we got the Ginnivan saga, and obviously we called him up to play, and he's not missed a game, and he's been superb. I think he's kicked over 20 goals. He's in our top 3, I believe, leading goal kickers. He's been really, really impressive in his first season, and at the moment he's not really kicking goals as much as he was, but he's still applying pressure, and that's something that Ginnivan doesn't really do. So I guess that's why he's probably getting a game over him at the moment. And you just can't drop a player of his high quality at the moment. He's just a superb player for us, and hopefully he will be for a long time. So yeah, we've obviously recruited really, really well coming in to this season, and we've had some decent moments this season. Obviously we had 2 losses, which, at this point of the season is pretty good. Only 2 losses. Obviously Brisbane at the Gabba are fortress and was always going to be difficult, and Melbourne upset us on the G, which, looking back on it, we probably would have beaten them if we did a few things a little bit differently. And, right now they're struggling, so if we were to play them in, next week or the coming weeks, we would definitely be the favourites again. So, only the 2 bad games. We've been really, really good. Darcy Moore has become captain this season, and he's done a fantastic job. He's going to be a future leader for who knows how long. Obviously, there's a few others that were fighting to become captain, and they really, really deserved to, really. Jeremy Howe, just such a great leader for the club. Braden Maynard, he was a big one that was definitely rumoured to become captain towards the end of the 2022 season. And Taylor Adams as well, who's a great leader for us and has been for such a long time, obviously coming to the back end of his career now. So, yeah, it was highly unlikely that he was going to become captain. I think he was previously vice-captain as well. So, it was always going to be pretty difficult for him to secure the captaincy, but Darcy's done a fantastic job. You'd expect him to become All-Australian. He's just such a fantastic player for us, and he's just such a nice guy as well, just such a great guy. Yeah, absolutely superb. And yeah, of course, Craig McRae's absolutely built this football club. He has made this club an elite force, and we're not perfect yet, but I tell you what, in a couple of years or even next year, if we do the right things, work on it, develop our players even more, some of our younger fellas, Pendlebury might be fighting to get in for a game. Now, obviously, that might not be the case, but we've just got such a great list at the moment, and we've got a fairly decent crop of players playing in the Resi. Some of them haven't even played a game yet, like Jacob Ryan and Ed Allen are untried. Harvey Harrison's only played the 4 or 5 games in his career. Ginnivan's struggled to get in this season. We've got McInnes, Carmichael, Billy Frampton, in my opinion, is probably not in our best 22. He's playing at the moment, though, which is, good for him. It's good to get some games into him. So, yeah, the more he plays, the more he'll understand our game plan. And, he's backing himself in at the moment. The confidence is definitely there. He's just not quite performing to the way we would have liked him to be when he was, playing in defence. I personally prefer him in the ruck. I don't prefer him over Cameron or Coxlow. So, yeah, you know, that's where it gets a little bit harsh for him, and he's definitely a key defender to ruck. He's not a forward. Obviously, we had to play him forward against the Dogs. We tried him out there at the Suns, and, you know, he was good, but the Suns, let's be real, they had a shocking game, and on a good day, the Suns definitely wouldn't have let, you know, his goals happen. I guess it's always good to get games into him, though. We've also got Reece McInnes. He kicked 6 goals again, like I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, in the VFL. So, you know, we've just got such a fantastic crop of players that are playing. And, you know, a few of them probably are going to get traded. Finlay McRae definitely seems the most likely at the moment on our list to go. Ash Johnson's been rumoured to go, like I said earlier. So, you know, there certainly are players that could be leaving the club. And you'd definitely expect that with a list at the moment. You know, they just want to play, really. And they can't, because our team is just so good and is performing so well that they just can't get in. But also, you got to give credit to some of the other boys as well, some of the other coaches. You got Scott Selwood, who's our assistant coach and midfield coach. He's been absolutely superb this season. You know, the midfield has looked a lot better than last season, a big improvement, which is definitely why we've probably risen from 4th to 1st. And we've also got Justin Lepage, who's obviously been rumoured to maybe leave and actually become an AFL senior coach at the end of the season. He's just done a superb job for us as well. Honestly, I feel like he could go, which is annoying in a way, because he's done such a good job, but it's just because he's just such a great coach. I guess he's not our senior coach, but he's still a great coach, and I can actually probably see him coaching at one of the bigger footy clubs, say Richmond, or even another club that's struggling, like maybe even North, or you never know, maybe Gold Coast. Maybe they decide to go after him, though I highly doubt it. But, you know, it's been absolutely superb to watch some of our coaches do what they've done. And, yeah, like I said before, the Scott Selwood has been massive for our midfield this season. He's definitely just improved our midfield a whole lot more. Nick Dacos has recently gone into the midfield, and he just looks absolutely fantastic now. You know, he's going up to Craig McRae saying, you know, am I playing mids? Because he just really wants to, you know, play mids. Obviously, we've also got others. Hayden Skipworth is our line coach. He's really good as well, and he's done a fantastic job so far. And also we have Brendan Bolton, who is our director of our coaching. He's like our backup coach in a way. Obviously used to coach Carlton. He obviously didn't have a great record there, got sacked. But you know, his rise has been really good, and he's definitely helped us out a lot. Also the attitude of Craig McRae has definitely helped us. You know, he's got great belief at the moment of the club. Obviously, he doesn't show it during press conferences and stuff, but you can just tell that he's got great belief that we're probably going to win, possibly a flag here this season, and perhaps even next season as well. And, you know, he's, you know, like I said earlier, he's experimenting a new game plan to throw in just in case some of the teams in finals, you know, expose us, or, you know, we get a reality check in some way and drop a final and have to go the long way, and maybe teams have found out our structure through the midfield, and you know, you got to stop the half backers, but just the energy we bring to the football club is just fantastic. And Craig McRae has done wondrous things for this football club. Absolutely superb. Great thing is, you know, we've got 3 picks next season. Pick 18, pick 27, and pick 74. if we want to get some players, obviously there's rumours that Ben King might be coming to the club, or maybe St Kilda to play with his brother. Now, obviously he's contracted for next year, so it'd be pretty difficult to do, so we'd have to probably wait until the end of next season, but that's for the future. Maybe we play three forwards, McStay, Myercheck and King. That'd be a pretty dangerous forward line if we do end up getting King. Obviously, we've got Pendlebury and Sidebottom who are probably going to retire in the next couple of years, but we feel like we've probably got enough depth there. With Trent Bianco and untried young star Ed Allen, possibly just slotting straight in for Sidey on the wing. And once Pendlebury goes, you feel like a big body like and Adams might have more midfield time before he retires, or even Lipinski, who came to the club wanting to play mids and hasn't quite done that this season. When he's been back, he's played more forward. I'm not sure how he thinks of that, but it looks like he's enjoying himself, and hopefully he does, want to stay, because I love him. He's a great player. He's a fantastic player, and the boys certainly do get around everyone. And it's great to see as well. Every single player will feel like they have a role at the club in a game, which is just fantastic as well. Collingwood, they're going to go after heaps of players apparently next season as well. Apparently Scott Lysette has been rumoured to maybe be traded here for more ruck depth, or maybe even get a game over Mason Cox. You never know. We've also got rumours that Max Holmes could be coming in as a potential wing replacement for Steele Sidebottom, which is interesting, that's for sure. I very much doubt it will happen though. Jade Gresham's been rumoured to come to the club, though I highly doubt he will, because we've got plenty of forwards already. And he's also been linked to Carlton and Hawthorn, and obviously could still say at the Saints, you never know. But yeah, I feel like we don't really need Jade Gresham anymore, because our forward line's just established itself, because we've got Myercheck. McStay obviously hasn't played a lot this season, but he's definitely in our best 22. We've also got Bobby Hill, Bo McCreary, Will Hoskin-Elliott goes in there. Jack Ginnivan for the future, Ash Johnson, depending if he doesn't get traded. There is rumours that he might be heading to Freo, who need a key forward. He'd be pretty undersized though at a side that really only has Jai Amos as their key forward stocks. But you never know. He could stay, he could go. He's also, I think, been linked to maybe West Coast, though I highly doubt he'd go there, seeming, he's getting games at the club at the moment, bar two injuries. But, he's still a good player, and he'd obviously want to play in a successful club. And, there's heaps of other players that have been rumoured to leave. I'm surprised that no one's going after McInnes, because he's a player that's, playing well in the reserves, kicked 6 goals couple of weeks ago against the Northern Bull Ants or whatever, and yeah, he's a talented player, and he just simply can't get a game, and probably won't. Maybe not forever, but it's just not looking likely that he will ever be a best 22 player. So I'm sure he'll probably be on the move next season, or even at the end of this season. Josh Carmichael's another one that just can't get in. I guess Ed Allen may want to go. You never know if he's wanting success. Finlay McRae's another one. But yeah, it's still a fairly solid side in terms of depth. I've also heard rumours that are obviously not true anymore, because he's signed on at Port, but we were going after Bergman for a while, but I believe he has signed on and agreed to stay at Port, which is a little bit weird how we were after him, and news came out saying that we were after him, because I wouldn't really see how he would fit into our side. Again, he can play on the wing, so that's the only position I can see him playing, because he's playing defence at the moment for Port and doing a fairly good job at it as well. And we certainly don't need a defender, because we've got 6 defenders that are just at the moment, delivering, and 7 if you count Markov. We've got Murphy, Howe, Moore, Noble, Quainer. Always seem to forget one. I think Maynard. I don't think I mentioned him, and Markov. Billy Frampton can't crack into that defence. He's playing forward at the moment, bit of a swingman. He'll probably get dropped though this week, you'd expect, with Myercheck coming back. But yeah, at the moment, spots are getting tighter and tighter. We always seem to have a player out though, which would be a shame, if in the grand final, if say someone really, important goes out injured. We do have the depth, but it would be a little bit unfortunate if they do go out. But I guess the only position on the ground that I can see is probably bolstering is the wing once Sidey goes. Then again, we've just got 2 pretty good young players there in Trent Bianco and Ed Allen, who are, patiently waiting in a way for Sidey to retire so they can get a crack, in the side. And we tried Trent Bianco for the first time this season as the sub against the Dogs and was, iffy. He turned the ball over a bit, but he still got his hands on it, which was good. We haven't tried out Ed Allen yet, but he's been very, very close for majority of the season. And same with Jacob Ryan, who we haven't tried yet as well, who's a good half backer, but he just won't get in, you'd think, until some of the older boys start retiring, because at the moment we've got 7 defenders that are just playing superbly at the moment. We've got the best defence in the comp they just simply can't crack in. Obviously we're not really going after key defenders or small defenders for next year. I don't really feel like we'll do much in the draft, maybe get 1 to 2 players, but that's it. I feel like we will end up getting a player through the trade period, whether it's Max Holmes, though I highly doubt he'll want to leave Geelong. Bergman's obviously not going to go. I don't think Gresham's going to come. Lysette is a maybe, though he's getting old. But you never know, he might join. Ben King is just probably ridiculous if we end up securing him. But it won't be this season's anyway. So, yeah, I've been rambling on about how good we are. I've been, saving the video up, and I've added to it a lot over the past couple of weeks, and I've definitely enjoyed it so far. And obviously, got Freo this week, and we've got an interesting fixture coming up. But I almost want to say, should make the grand final this season and maybe even win it. And we've got to probably win a flag with the side that we have and the coach that we have. Craig McRae will become a premiership coach. It's just no doubt about it. He's just that good of a coach. Most players are, wanting success, and they're playing like they want to, which is good. Jamie Elliott's starting to get some form up in the recent weeks. So, yeah, you certainly never know what we're going to do. We could cause, a dynasty. I don't want to get too excited, though. I don't think we're going to go on the terms of Richmond and win 3 out of 4 in a bunch of years, really. I don't think we'll go to that extent. You never know. We could. But yeah, I guess you just never know. But yeah, obviously Nick Dacos probably in the lead at the moment for the Brownlow as well. So we've just got stars absolutely everywhere at the moment. We've probably got 3 or 4 potential All-Australians as well. You'd expect Darcy Moore to probably get into the All-Australian squad. Jordan Ngoe's pushing. Josh Dacos. Obviously Nick. I don't think Tom Mitchell can get in there, unfortunately, for the big on ballers and the strong midfielders. There's just too many that are playing too well at the moment in the comp. So, but his form's been, right up there at the moment. There were, discussions about Myercheck, but, he's not going to get in. So, yeah, it's definitely a huge future for us under Craig McRae. You just feel that he's probably going to be around for a long time, you feel. And we're going to try and hold on to him for as long as possible, really. And, once he stops coaching, there'll probably be other teams that might want to go after him eventually, once maybe we decide it's time to switch it up. But, it's just been absolutely superb so far. It's been fantastic to get around. The whole season, it's been superb. Our whole quote for the season has been "make it legendary," and so far, for majority of the time, I reckon we have, and it's looking like we could go on to perhaps a dynasty. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. It's been a long time coming, that's for sure. Stay tuned for my Collingwood review this week after the game against Freo, which I might add, I haven't watched a Freo game since 2020. We'll be watching the game, don't worry. So yeah, it's going to be huge scenes, that's for sure. And yeah, hopefully we get the job done. And yeah, I'll see you then in the review.